Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending upon where you are. I wanted to send a video to introduce myself and say hello and say a couple more things. Um, First off, my name is Cedra and I am your instructor for this course this summer. Alex, Morgan, and Charlotte have been taking over for the first few weeks as I was unable to attend. And so I'm slowly going to be coming in this week, and I've been reading a lot of your work already and trying to catch up and acquaint myself with everything that's been going on. And so I appreciate your time and thoughtfulness and all of the effort that you've put in thus far. Once again, my name is Cedra. I don't know if I said that. It's very, very early here. Just a little bit of background about myself. I have two small children who are currently asleep, which is why I am doing this video now, because I can do it and I won't be interrupted. I have been in the field of early childhood education for 21 years, 20 plus years. I'd say a little less than half of that was in the classroom teaching, primarily with toddlers, 18 months to 3 years. And a little over half of that time I spent as an administrator, primarily as an office manager. The few places that I think influenced me the most were the Growing Place, the Children's Center at Caltech, where I served on the EC STEM Conference Committee, and Fair Oaks Preschool, where I served on the board of directors and was the assistant director for a brief period before we unfortunately had to close due to the pandemic. Prior to all of this, or amidst all of this, I earned my undergrad degree in human development, a master's degree in business administration, and my primary teaching beginning started in Montessori. So I received the Association Montessori International training for children 0 to 3 years. Association Montessori International, also known as AMI, is a foundation that Dr. Montessori herself created for the proper training of teachers. So I started with the OG Italian and then slowly moved into Malaguzzi. So I started with mother. So I have kind of a mix of pedagogy in my background that I come with. And I believe somewhere Malaguzzi was quoted as saying something along the lines of, you always have to start somewhere, but then you have to grow. And that's what I feel like with Montessori and Reggio. I'm going to move on from there, though, because I have a lot in my head and I don't want to make this video too long for you. Why pause? Currently, I am the office manager, executive assistant for the head of school and the administrative team at Crestview Preparatory School. That is a K through 6. So I've moved up a little bit from early childhood education and into the elementary world. Once again, I have two children. I have a almost 10-year-old and a 3-year-old who could break in at any moment. So if they do, we're all educators. We know how much fun that is. I say all of this because I know that life will give you a lot in addition to a master's program. I earned my master's as a full-time working mother. So I know how hard this is, and I appreciate how hard this is. So now, why am I late arriving to your class? I wanted you to be aware of why I am late. So my husband of almost 13 years was diagnosed with stage 4 gastric cancer in June of 2019. And he worked really hard to fight his illness for the better part of 3 years, more than 3 years, because he had it before he was diagnosed. Um, that was shortly before our second daughter was born. And this past May, he was admitted to the hospital. And unfortunately, on May 13th, he completed his battle with cancer and he passed. So I've been coping with his loss and managing memorials and helping my children cope and learning what life is going to be like as a solo parent. So that's why I'm late. My apologies to you. I think you will all understand greatly. Um, and I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate so much Alex and Charlotte for managing the first few weeks as I took that time for my family to grieve. Let's see. Next, I'd like to talk about how I usually start this class. And one of the big questions that I like to put forward and have you think about and hear from you about is about STEM itself. So I'm going to pose these two questions. They're completely for thought only. I don't need any responses. If you would like to respond or include that information in any of your writing, you're more than welcome to. But it's more food for thought and things that I just want you to consider as you continue moving forward through the course, and especially in this next part, which is design thinking. I'm also distracted because I have a cat who's probably going to make an appearance at some point. He's scratching on the wall. So let's see, the questions that I pose, there's two, and the first one is, what about STEM, which topic is the most exciting, the most interesting thing that you look forward to when you're thinking about this course and learning within this course, or just at all when you hear STEM and you think of the acronym science, technology, engineering, math? Which topic are you most drawn to and most excited about, most curious about, and feel most connected to? Alternatively, which of those do you feel the opposite about? Is there one that makes you anxious? Is there one that makes you nervous or apprehensive? Is there one that you feel least connected to, or that you don't particularly understand or enjoy, or that you've had challenges with in the past? Since we're not sharing that with each other and hearing that with each other, I can tell you for myself, originally, I think that science would have been the one I'm most excited about, because I feel like it is the most easily accessible for us. We are biology. We thrive through botany. We eat food. Everything is connected in my mind, and is very easily connected in our brains, and we can see it and it's there. And I think it's the most readily available to us, just in terms of what our experiences are. And it used to be that the other three were all things that brought anxiety to me for different reasons. As I've gone through work in different programs, I still think that science is up there for me in positivity, but I think it's switched into engineering now. And I think that the thing that still gives me apprehension and curiosity is technology, but I'm mixed about that. And that's a good segue into what I wanted to talk about, because I think that in my experience, and it does not have to be your experience, but in my experience, I think that for most people, technology and engineering are probably the least accessible things that are part of STEM. And I think technology primarily is the thing that gives most apprehension to teachers. Because when we think technology, we think computers, screens, and as teachers, we're much more hands-on, we're much more play-based, and we run into kind of a dilemma where we don't want children to be on screens. We want them to be playing and out in nature. But I think that what shifted for me was when I worked at the Children's Center at Caltech. They talked about technology in a different way, and they used technology in a different way. And they have a concept that I'd like to share with you. And I always give credit there because that's where I learned it. And it's helped me break down technology in a way that's made it accessible to me. And so they talk about technology in terms of big T and little t. So you have big T, which is computers, tablets, ATM machines, the things that we swipe our cards in, at the grocery store, robots, coding, on a more advanced level coding, things like that. Big T, big technology that's already created that oftentimes has an end user and not necessarily someone who's created the technology, but somebody who's using the technology. Whereas little t is much more basic and simplified. Little t is a fork is a lever, simple machines, the wedge, the lever, wheel and axle. I've forgotten all of the other simple machines. But I think it's important to make that distinction in our head and to remember that technology started out as simple tools, very simple items that we used to make life easier for us. And there are ways of introducing technology in a sense that allow us to understand the concept and allow us to explore that concept without necessarily diving headfirst into the user end, which is apps. And even an overhead projector is technology, and it's a more complex, it's kind of a medium T, cameras. Smaller T is going to be magnifying glasses, and then you graduate up into binoculars and then microscopes. So there's levels that can be found within technology that can make it more accessible to all of us, and especially to those of us that find it challenging or even a bit concerning introducing it or bringing it into the classroom in a certain way. And I think it is very important to start with a little t and to understand the little t before we get to the big T, so that there is a sense of ownership, even when we are using technology versus creating technology. That is my talk on technology. There was something in there that I wanted to discuss. Simple machines. So I really like to watch or see or read different things related to STEM because I just think it's fun. I think it's interesting and engaging, and some of it is related and some of it isn't. And I wanted to share some of it with you anecdotally. And so I've collected what I call science nuggets. In hindsight, it should have been STEM nuggets. So I apologize that it is not STEM nuggets, but it's stuck in my head now. So it's science nuggets. And I have posted those in the first 2 modules. So you'll have week 1 science nuggets at the end, and you'll have cycle 2 science nuggets at the end. And what's in there? Videos that I found interesting, links to articles that I found interesting that might be relevant. Some of you I saw in your discussions were talking about Kane's Arcade. There's 2 different ones. Kane's Arcade is in both of the current science nuggets that are up. I believe in week 1 I included a link to some simple machines information that has a list of all of them because my brain is not remembering all of them. Some articles, but mostly I try to find videos or fun anecdotes or interesting things that might supplement the reading. They're all supplemental. You can watch, you can read, you can ignore. Whatever you have time for, interest in, is completely at your discretion. But I include them because I like them. I think they're fun. And I think in some cases they're supplemental. So I included Kane's Arcade this last cycle. And I also included, what is it called? Squirrel Maze. Mark Rober, I believe, is the YouTube sensation that created these two mazes, obstacle courses. They're squirrel obstacle courses that he basically set up during COVID. He had the intent of bird watching, and that quickly ended when he saw that the squirrels were stealing all of the food. So those are fun, but also interesting to watch through the lens of the reading that we have been doing. So if you have time to watch them, they're fun, I promise. But it is interesting to think about the differences between the two videos and between the two approaches to making. There's also a video that I really loved on math. It's a TEDx talk, and that is in there as well. So if you have a chance, take a look. Again, all supplemental, no grading. I've posted them as discussions in case you do want to comment on anything, you're welcome to. But again, all supplemental, no requirements, just fun additional things to take a look at in your oh so much free time. That's a joke. So that's a nice segue into pacing and timing. So I want to tell a little story about my uncle. First, before I tell the story, I'm going to explain that last year and since and always, time has always been kind of this elusive thing that people talk about either having too much of or not enough of. And I've reflected on that a lot for a lot of different reasons. And last summer, I had the ability to reflect on it quite a bit. My uncle worked at JPL, and last summer he passed also from cancer. And he had a much longer battle than my husband did. My husband was sick for 3 years, and he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for over 15. So he was able to manage it quite a bit better. He worked at GPL, and he started there young and worked his way up. And eventually he built cameras. So he was worked on several different missions. Cassini, Curiosity, and Perseverance are the ones that are the most in my head. So we were at Christmas one year, and I asked him how work was going. And this was when he was working on Perseverance. And he explained to me that he was having kind of a hard time because he helped, again, he builds cameras. So on the Curiosity rover, the first images, the first black and white images that came back are images from a camera that he built from the Curiosity rover. So on the Perseverance rover, he was working on a component called Sherlock, which is a UV spectrometer. Sherlock is an acronym that I don't remember again, and I'm sure you can Google it if you have interest in terms of what all of that means, but I'm pretty sure that S stands for spectrometer or something of that sort. But it was very key to the project because it's Perseverance is looking for signs of life. So the UV spectrometer is looking for, it's scanning for possible areas where there would have been water. I don't know if Sherlock itself does that, but it's an important component and part of the perseverance that helps, takes imagery and brings data back. So my uncle was working on this particular component. And when I asked him how work was going, he said, well, we're having a really hard time figuring this out. And it's not working. And we're running out of time. And, I like science, but I also am a busy person. So I wasn't able to really dig too deeply into, what was going on. And so I said, well, what happens if you don't make your deadline? So he explained to me that in order to get to Mars, you need the shortest distance possible. So both planets orbit the sun, but at different rates. And so there's only one time, of course, that the planets align and they are the closest together that they'll ever be in their orbits as they go around the sun. And that time period only happens every almost 3 years, or just over 3 years, around about 3 years. It takes 3 years for them to line up completely together. And this is critical, not only because it would cost a lot more money to go a further distance, but also because you would need more fuel because you would be gone longer and it would weigh down the rocket and you would need more supplies. So the most efficient, best possible way is to take the shortest route when they align every 3 years. So you have a 3-year window basically to get everything in place, to build it, make sure it works, have a logistical plan and how it's going to get there. All of those parts and components have to come together and everything has to work together, and you only have 3 years to do it. So it's a very real life, solid example of time. And we are always kind of talking about how, oh, we have too much time to do this. It was just taking forever and I didn't need that much time. That's a rarity. Or you're saying, I didn't have enough time. I have too many things going on. Or, I've been working on this thing and I need more time. I don't have enough time to complete what I wanted to or to do what I wanted to. But the truth is, we only have what we have. Time doesn't speed up or slow down. That's an illusion that we experience, and it's a very real experience. But we only have what we have. And the critical thing that I've learned and taken away, and still have to remind myself and still have to practice, is that it matters what we do with that time. And another wise teacher uses the phrase, it isn't done, but it's due. So I think that has helped me understand and push through and try not to refine and refine and refine before submission, because it's learning and taking all of this in is a process. You're never going to know it all. You're going to need to go back and review. You're going to change your perspective on a couple of things, a couple of different reasons, a couple of different times. You're going to have different experiences that make you revisit things. So the point is not to understand it all at once. The point is to begin that process of taking it in and moving forward through the material and through this experience in a way that's meaningful and gives you a chance to really start diving into this topic and start diving into STEM through this lens and thinking about how it looks in your classrooms, how it looks in your schools, how it looks with the children that you interact with. Yeah, time is a strange thing. So pace yourself, but keep going. Don't get bogged down by time. Don't get stuck by time. But remember that When there's a deadline, there's a deadline. He did get Sherlock to work on time and made it to Mars, as you know. There are many pictures that came back for that, and there's going to be data gathered for a long time after he's passed that they're going to use to understand more about the planet, about possible life there. It's going to keep going even after him. So remember that, and honor the time that you have, and use it and take it and keep going through it. This is all a process. So, and along the same notes, remember that this is a co-construction class and a collaborative class. So a lot of the components, your peers are really depending upon you to have in a timely manner. That being said, again, I have a very busy life and I understand that sometimes you get delayed, but communication is key. So if you are getting stuck and you know you're going to be behind in something, please email me. Canvas is probably the best place. I do get alerts there. You can also email me and my email address. You can let me know in either place in any way. You can also email Alex or Charlotte, anyone. But communicate. Let us know what you're experiencing. Let us know what you're going through. And if it is specific to a peer review, let your peer know what's going on too. Because we're depending upon each other to co-construct the knowledge together. And if we don't know what's going on for the other person, then we're all kind of hitting pause. So just open up, let me know what's going on, let your peers know what's going on. And when it comes to the read and response, the phrase that's been in my head is take a bite, process, write, take a bite, process, write. I know that there's a lot to take in. So do it. I told you he was going to come and say hello. There's a lot to take in and to process, and you don't have to do it all at once. And when you do your first reading response, you don't even have to have completed all of the reading. Start with something, get the conversation going, keep the conversation active. If you keep reading, come back, write a little bit more, comment a little bit more. Just get started and then keep going and take bite after bite. And the size of the bite you take is all dependent upon what you're able to handle at that time, but just keep biting, keep going. Don't get stuck. That is everything that I have in my notes. So this week you are diving into design thinking, and that can be amazing and wonderful for some people, and for others can be very daunting and challenging. But remember, just take it slowly, think deeply, reflect, talk with your peers. I enjoy this cycle quite a bit, actually. So dig in, and I'll be in touch. And Alex and Charlotte will also be in touch as well. So have a wonderful week. For your information, I am taking a vacation with my family, and I will have access to internet. I will be checking in. I may have a slower response time than typical, but you're just getting to know me, so you don't know what typical is. So just know that I'm vacationing and I am here, but I may be slow to respond to you. I am looking forward to meeting all of you in the synchronous meeting, which will be coming up later. And I'm going to look at that date and know exactly what it is. And if you have any questions or anything, any information you want me to know about your life that might be slowing you down or challenging you, please reach out. We're in this together and we're going to get through it. and we're going to have fun doing it. I think when you look back, you're going to really appreciate the content and the experience quite a bit. I appreciate you. I thank you, and I will bid you farewell and see you again soon.